So today I want to talk to you guys about Airtable. All right. A short story of what I found out about Airtable was I was thinking of an exercise that just gives anyone an idea of every stage in the data lifecycle. And when you think about data analysis, data science, machine learning, it boils down to the data itself, to the raw data that you can now ingest into some form of repository, some table, database, sheets, whatever, that you can then pull out and wrangle and clean and put it into some format that you can now use for whatever your end goal is. So that can be exploratory data analysis, that can be some form of correlation analysis, some machine learning development, some model development, you know, then your dashboard or whatever. So I was thinking of an exercise that deals with this early stage in the data lifecycle, right? And I just thought about, okay, how can we orchestrate creating random records, numerical records, insert it into some online um, repository, some online DB, some online table that anybody in your team in every stage of the life cycle can then go into and fetch those records. And I was doing some search and I found out about Airtable. And the beautiful thing I like about Airtable is it's free, and then there's some documentation on how to use it. It's a very rich documentation, and finally, it has an API you can call. So this video is just going to show you how we can orchestrate things locally and then push random records into Airtable for us then to now use it. You can use it as a webhook on Tableau, fetch, retrieve records through the same API calls and all of that. We won't get there, but this video is just essentially for that early stage. We're going to randomly generate some records that is befitting for certain fields and then ingest that data into Airtable by calling this API. So what you can see on my screen right now is a graphical illustration of this step. So first of all, we write a Python script that randomly generates records. We call it autorecords.py, right? Feed those records into another script and ingest data.py script. Then we schedule the ingestion or the insertion of those records with a batch script, right, on Windows. I said everything is going to be done locally. Then we'll now send all of those records into a table that we'll create on Airtable, right? So this is an example of what those fields look like, right? So I created a test table. So we're going to have an ID, a name field, an age field, email, department. The data is essentially an employee sort of record. It has the dimension for what a typical employee table would look like. So it's a very simple exercise, and then I would then show you the script. But this is what it's really all about. The ID I'm going to be using is Python. You can use whatever ID you like. So we're going to call it scrap, or what we're going to call it Airtable engineering. That's what I'm going to call it. Um, I will select an existing virtual environment, right? But I'm going to create that. I'll create it on this window. And then first things first, you have to create another virtual environment, one that is visible within the project directory, right? So you do that with python-dotenv, then you can call it Airtable virtual environment. So we'll do that. Then while that runs, I have to go into my Git. I'll be creating a few files. First will be the requirement.txt. This is where I'm gonna put list out the packages I'm gonna be using here. We need the auto records.py script. We need the ingest data.py script. Then what else? We'll need the Airtable ingest scheduler, right? .bat. Right, this way we write the logic for ingesting for running the script. So I'm gonna run that. Right, so I'll check if my virtual environment is ready. Once that is ready, all I need to do to activate it is do Airtable, the name of the virtual environment, /scripts, /activate. Right. So I'm doing this in PowerShell. So once I expand my directory, I should be able to see these files. So the first thing I want to do, is go into my requirements file and list out the packages I want. The first package I need is the pyairtable. I also need the Figure library. I think, okay. I think I also need scheduler, but don't let us schedule for now. Let's just see that things work for now. Just two packages first. So I do pip install -r requirements text. Oh, okay. So I don't have the internet connection. I'm just gonna pause. I've got my internet connection now. One more library we need to install is python-dotenv. We'll use this to interact with our environment variables. So I also need to create one. This way we'll store our secrets like our API key, table name, base ID. So once I run Python install requirements again, that should work. Yeah. So this might just take a while, but I feel we can also get started. I can see it's bringing up that error right here. So first things first, we are going to import our libraries, import dependencies, right? This portion initialize Figure with by saying Figure equals to Figure. So let us ignore this. Right? Oh, I think it's installed already. So if we did Python show Figure, should see it installed. Okay, so it's installed already. So we can just go ahead. Here we'll now start to create certain functions. The first thing we want to create is an ID. Although Airtable already creates a unique ID for every entry made, for every time we write in records. A unique ID is created and then a timestamp, right? But I want to generate my own unique ID. So I want to say generate unique ID. That is without any parameter. I say return. And so my unique ID is gonna be something like this. It's gonna have a capital N prefix, right? Then 5 digits. It's gonna be, so an example is gonna be say N 1 2 3 4 5, right? So let me just comment that out and say random random integer from, so that has to be 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. It's sorry, 4 zeros. Yeah. So that's from 10,000 to 99,999. So it just generates random values from this to this, from the upper limit to the lower limit, right? So that will sort us out for the ID. However, for the other fields, we'll have to create a different function. So we can call this anything. We can say generate random records. Right. Now, it will take a parameter that will handle the number of records that are generated. So by default, I want it to just generate 10. So that means if you don't provide any value by default, it will generate 10 records, right? So we initialize an empty list. Then we'll go ahead to say to set certain constants. So those constants would imply the limits of the field. So for instance, the employees departments would be within this category: sales, engineering. So I already have like a list already somewhere which I'm reading from. So sales, engineering, marketing, HR, right? I hope I'm spelling them correctly. HR, finance. I think we can stop at finance, right? Then we have statuses. These are just fields. You can call them anything really. Um, so this will just show how your activity, if you're active, if you're on leave, right? If you're on contracts or if you're remote, right? So I thought this out already. There's like a case study I had in my head. So you don't have to follow this if you're creating your own examples. But hey, right? So now we want to set up certain range for for the number of values that will be created. So we want to create a random date. Now this would be like the date of resumption, right? And this is not a date in the future. It's always going to be a date in the past, or as at from today. So we're going to generate date records from today till 165 days ago, right? So we're saying from now till time delta till 365 days ago, right? So this is going to randomly generate a value from 0 to 365, right? And then the random date is going to be the subtraction of this date. That's an error, supposed to be now, uh, minus this value, right? So if, for instance, this time delta is 0, we're going to get the same date as today. So the next thing we're going to do is format that date into what is acceptable on Airtable. So we're still going to go in and look at what that Airtable interface looks like when you start to generate a table. So for data engineers, when you start to set up constraints and then um, set up what a table, the format for what a table is like, it gets a little bit better. But for data analysts, people don't really do a lot of engineering. They just write a lot of scripts. Uh, you should be familiar with this and you should be comfortable. This is like a convenient aspect of things. But when we get into a table, you're going to see why we're applying certain constraints from our script. Right. So we're going to now format our random dates to a certain string type, which is going to be the year is going to be first, it's going to be Y, it's going to be month, that's M, lower case, then the date, right, followed by the R in this column sort of pattern, the minutes, then the seconds, right? I'm going to follow it by the millisecond. Hey, okay, so move on to now generating these records, right? So we call it records. The list itself is we called records, and I'll show you why. But let's just go ahead. So start by saying fields. It's going to come in some form of JSON object because that's how uh, uh, Airtable sort of receives these values, and it's just a neater way, and it's also like the common way data is transferred over the internet, right? So it's something you have to be comfortable with as an analyst, putting data in certain structures. There's the pandas way, which everybody's kind of familiar with, and there's JSON, right? So here we're going to nest our values under the fields dictionary. We're going to say first in ID, we're going to call the function we created earlier on, which is generates unique ID. Then next thing we want to do is create a name value. We're going to use the faker library for that. So we just say fake name, easy. Then the next one we're gonna okay, something that's for- okay, here. So shouldn't have an issue. The next thing we do is the age, right? Everybody here is an adult, so we're going to say generate a random integer from the within between 18 and let's say 80. It is like the retirement age, so it shouldn't be working by then. The next thing is an email. We want to generate a personal mail, so we're going to say fake email, right? Come here, and then departments is going to be one of those departments that we had created earlier on. So this will just be a random choice, right? Um, departments. So you can see how intuitive things can be. All you just really need to do is think things through and then walk in steps, right? So for instance, I'm not just coming here now to just put in my department. I'd already created that variable here. So it's simply just going in there. I don't need to start ransacking my head over various names I could use. I just go in and import a library that does that, right? So easy peasy. So we'll move on to create a salary, hmm, how much you earn. So we'll be rounding up some values, right, to two decimal places. But those values are going to be random, right? I'm going to say random uniform from the minimum wage used to be 30,000. Let's just say it's about 70,000 now. How much is that in USD? Please let me know. Yeah, let's keep that at 70,000 naira. And so as far as much as 1.5 million, right? Okay, two decimal places. Right. So let's move on and say let's generate a fake phone number for you. I'm gonna say easy. So just say fake phone number. Also with the address. I'm gonna generate a fake address for you. Say fake address. So one thing we're going to do with the addresses is because sometimes when I was experimenting with the fake library, I saw that some addresses have a next line attribute, right? And we don't want that because it just introduces some ambiguity to our data set. So what we're going to do, we're going to replace any next line attribute. Let's skip it. So we do that with this. Move on, and then data date or date of employment, whatever. So that would be these are um, formatted dates attributes. So next thing is you get the right random choice. What do we call it? Random choice statuses. My English is failing me. Oh, the statuses. Okay, I think I got it correctly. Next, we move to years of experience. So here we don't really discriminate. We say random, random, random integer from 0 years of experience to let's say 30 or 45. Let's say 45 years of experience because you're not expected to spend at most 45 years in this company. Right, but yeah, it's really your choice. Just roll with it. Whatever you feel is appropriate. So next we append the record to the records, right? So remember that we had initially created an empty list here, and then for every record that is made, go append it into this list. So finally we close our function here by returning records. So it's that easy. So when you put 10 here, which is the default, this function is run 10 times, right? So you get 10 records. If you put 50, you get 50 records. Random records, by the way. If you put 100, you get 100 records. So that's it. So we can actually run it and see what happens here. So we do Python auto records the py. Okay. So I think for that to run, we have to do let's do this. We have to say dev me. Let's do what did we call the function? Called it this. So we'll do this. Let's say we want to, right? Let's do to close. And let's say if actually we don't okay. Well, let's just go ahead. Main and then just run. So we don't need this function actually. You can just move this here. Yes. Let's see if it works. So let me run it. Oopsie, what did it do wrong? Let me run it from here. Okay, now let it be called faker. Okay, let me run it check. So you have to okay, okay. So it's reading from different environments. That's why it's getting this error. But this ought to return value. We ought to do this. Sorry. All right. So to fetch the results of this function, can we print it out? It's as simple as that. So let's run this again. Oh, nice. So you can see randomly generated records. You can see for N80439, we have Elizabeth Rose, 29 years old. These are male. These are departments. She earns about 500K. This is her phone number, address. You can see what happened there. Okay, so yeah, she's on leave currently. She has 13 years of experience. The next field is this. Roy, age 45. Okay, okay. As a lot. What's enough is it works remotely. This is the kind of thing I want. And even has a lesser number of experience than Elizabeth. Anyway, so that's how you can generate random records with Python. And I think it's just interesting how we can locally orchestrate things for proof of concept, see how things work, debug, tinker with things and confirm that things work before we can actually then move stuff into production. And this is something that anybody can do. Along, you can just go to the Airtable site, this airtable.com. So I'd already created a free profile, right? So what we want to do is get our personal access token. I'm trying to figure it out here. Okay, it's on Builder Hub, right? Yeah, so you can see you can create your personal access token from here. And create a new ID, give it a name, a new token is generated for you. So this is like the prefix for my token. Simply copy it and then keep it. So you have to remember to keep your keys safe. And even when we start to orchestrate things locally, I'll show you, or you see how I keep mine in an environment in a .env file, I keep it as an environment variable that I do not expose even when I push the code to GitHub, right? So I already created a workspace created for you automatically, right? This is the table, right? But before I started ingesting and certainly the records that you can see now, I had to create each field and then apply the necessary constraints. So for instance, for the status was, I gave it a name status, the field type was long text, for years of experience, the field type would be numbers, right? And sometimes it may ask for a default. So you have to create all the necessary fields there. So in our example, we created ID, name, age, email. This is gonna serve as a primary key. The name, the age, the email, down to years of experience will be the fields we'll use here, right? So that's it. So once you have your personal access token, you can go back to your code here in your .env file. You say API key, alright. Then you put in your personal access token. You put in the value, right, for your personal access token. Another thing you need to know is um or another thing you need to retrieve is your base ID and table name. So keep another variable, base ID, another one is table name. Alright. So if you notice I copied the URL, if I paste the URL here, this value right here is your base ID. This value right here is your table name. So you can just paste, copy this to then paste. So I won't be exposing my API key for the tutorial, but this is how you can store it, right? I think another thing we need to also create is a git ignore file. Let us have that one out of the way. I think it's git.ignore. That's what it is. Alright, so it should appear. Alright, so what we want to keep here is .f file. Alright, so we don't expose it. Now to ingest the data would be using our API key and by Airtable library from auto records, imports, everything, right? Or you can just call the actual function you need from that script. So we don't really need to set up login yet because we are not scheduling. We are just checking that things indeed work, right? But if we're going to go ahead with scheduling, we need to also create logs so that by the time we have our log scripts or our log file, txt file, we'll be able to manage that service and see how it works. So next, we are going to load environment variables. Alright, so we just initialize load.env. The other ways of doing it, but this is how I know. Then you say API key is going to be os.get environment variable API key. So it's just going to fetch your API key value from your .env file. So we can copy that. So this becomes the base ID. Do we even need the base ID? Okay, yes we do. Base ID. This is the table name, right? So you copy that, paste that here. Copy the table name, paste that here. And next we go and prepare. We have to prep the data for insertion. So what that means is I'm going to show you, but let me just write this out. Generated records. It's going to be our generated records. Then we're going to say return the values, the record values for every field, not for every record here. Okay, so if you remember when we ran our auto-generated scripts, we got this value, this output value, right? Um, when you retrieve records from Airtable, when you try to create records on Airtable, you only see field appear once, right, as the parent, while every other record comes in as a child. But what you can see from our generated, what was generated from the script is that we can see for every iteration, the field, the parent, we see it appearing twice. So what we want to do is exempt this value, this field's value, and just post our individual records as the time as a record to Airtable. So that's what we'll be doing here. This is like a duplicated thing. We can also achieve that directly from our auto records, but this is just a good way of showing how you can also manipulate data into a preferred format, right? So that's just what the prep for insertions function does. The next thing we do is actually attempt to insert it. So we just create a main function. And our main function, we're going to try to fetch our API key. Our API key is simply going to be this API object we imported from pyairtable. API key. Next thing is also get the connect to the table by saying table equals to API table, right? It's going to take the base ID and the table name as arguments, right? So that it's as easy as that. That will be connected to the table, right? So the next thing we do is we call the generate automatic records function. So that's simply gonna be what's the name of what did we call this function? Yeah, we call the generate random records. All right, come back here. We'll say auto records to generate, right? So how many records do we want? I just leave it here and say 50, right? Say we want 50 records. So I also want to do some implicit logging with print statements. So I can just put it here, say certain records, right? So once I have my records, I can prep these records using this prep for insertion function, right? For the auto record. So it's going to go through it, iterate through every item in the records and then remove the fields value or extract just the fields value, right? So the created records now are what are we going to insert into Airtable, and we do that by simply saying table batch create, because we are putting a bunch of records, the prep records. So it's as easy as that. If if that runs successfully, or if that runs successfully, I want to print a statement saying it has successfully inserted uh, the number of records actually successfully inserted into a table. Simple as that. Oh, okay, sorry. Say created record instead. Right. So that's it. That's it. So you just put your exception clause here, your exception statement here. Say print the error if an error occurs. Uh, That's it. That's it. It's as easy as ABC, you know. So you add this if statement here to run your main scripts. So okay, this yeah. So let's see. So currently, when you look at my table here, let me zoom out. Let me zoom out a bit. If you look at my records there, I only have 301 records, right? I only have 301 records. If I'm to run this script right now, where I said it should insert, okay, let me generate 150 records. So if this runs successfully, by the time I come back here, I should have 451 records, right? So let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. So if I say Python ingest data the py, so you can see that it actually, so I can see that indeed the inserting records part started. However, I hit an error, and the reason I hit that error is because in my environment file I've not provided my API key. So I'm going to pause the video now. Sure, let's put it side by side. Uh, so let's put things side by side so we can see it happening in real time. What's happening? Okay, so we currently have 301 records right here. All right, so let's see what happens when we run this. Wow, you can see it happening, right? In a matter of seconds, we've inserted 150 records into a table, right? So it's that easy, guys. It's that easy. All you really need to do is think through whatever problem it is, and find a way to achieve that in the cheapest, easiest way possible. One thing that helps is going for free tier products, especially if you're just going showing proof of concepts.